Okay, we are live today on the ArchieLuxury and the Paul Pluta channel. Today, I have got Patek royalty. I have got Patek royalty as a guest. I have got the legendary John Reardon. John Reardon. He is probably one of the legends in the Patek genre. He wrote the book. Patek Philippe in America, which I gotta be honest with you, is one of my favorite Patek books. John Reardon, you used to work for Patek, and you've worked for a number of auction houses. And John is now, he's got his own business, collectability.com, and you're in New York, and you're specializing in pre-owned Patek items, and I think you do a bit of advice on consultancy, people who want to build collections. You give them you steer them a certain way, and you've got your focus there. John, I want to say thank you so much for agreeing to come on the ArchieLuxury, the Paul Pluta channel. It's a great honor, and I honestly mean this. I am a guy who has always loved Patek. That was it, and I gotta say it's a real honor to have you here. Please tell me about yourself, John. What have I left out?
Well, first, thank you so much for the opportunity to do a show with you on ArchieLuxury channel. This is a first. As you know, I don't do too much with YouTube. I'm just beginning, learning how the YouTube universe works. And I've been watching you for years. I mean, incredible. 10 years you've been doing this. And it's a true honor to be here with you today from the other side of the world. So good morning to you.
Hey, thank you to those so much, John. And you've got your own channel there. Let me just plug that. Collectability. Yes, is the name of your channel.
Collectability has recently begun on YouTube. I'm most active on Instagram. I'm addicted to Instagram. Had a lot of fun with that over the years. And I just wanted to say thank you for this opportunity. Hopefully we could dig into some questions of Patek Philippe that haven't been discussed before publicly, and we could dig into the questions that we've always wanted to ask. I may not have the answers. You may have the answers. You're under the comments. We might have some great answers, but we could talk about the things that the Patek Philippe universe wants to dig into.
Let me just ask you first, John. John, I'm going to. I want to talk to you, and I wanna seek you. I got to tell you this. You are the pontiff's pontiff. You're the guru's guru. You are the man.
You're too kind. There are those that know much more than me, for sure.
Well, I don't think you're a very, very humble guy there. I don't think that is quite true. I part of my business model is that I'm just going to bring up a shared screen here. I do a lot of reviews. I do a lot of reviews. Nice. People ask me what do I think of their collection, and I got to be totally honest with you, John. You are one of the few people in the world who is able to come to me and tell me, what do you think of my collection? And you have the substance to say it's garbage. They look all the same. 5 identical Pateks. Please, could you give me a quick review? What do you think of this here? If you don't like it, feel free to hold back and criticize anything you want.
What's incredible? I just lost you. Can you see me?
I can see you.
I have you back. Excellent.
Yep, good.
You can read a lot into someone's personality by looking at their watch and also their collection. And looking what you have very diverse interests. I mean, going from Calatravas to annual calendar to world time. You have different colors. I mean, we see white, yellow. Is the 5110 rose gold?
Yeah,
World
no,
Cup.
sorry. The 5110 is yellow gold, actually. Yellow gold.
Oh, excellent. So literally, you have a watch.
The front row is all yellow, and the back row is white gold.
White gold. Makes it easy. The 6000 in white. When I first saw that released in Basel, that's while I was at PATEK Philippe, I believe, I was shocked because remember the reference 5000 and the 5026
Yes.
before it with the eccentric sub-seconds. I mean, this watch was born out of automotive inspiration, and this watch really captures it with that dial. And they brought out the sub-seconds with the white, almost Paul Newman-esque look. So it has an automotive feel and aesthetic to it, and it works. You could wear that with jeans. You could wear that black tie. That is a quintessential modern Patek Philippe. But
mine is actually I think you know, mine's a 6006 actually.
Oh, it's a 6006. Oh, that's after.
Yes.
There.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I mean, I because you can tell by the skeletonized hands.
Oh, beautiful.
Mind you, this picture, they look basically the same. The pointer date is the only really giveaway. But I know exactly what you're saying. So you like it or you hate it? What?
No, two thumbs up. I think
thumbs up.
The Pontiff Patek has spoken, and I think it's a gorgeous watch. Yet it's not my favorite out of the 5 pieces I'm looking.
No. What? Tell me more. What do you think there?
It's split. My 2 favorites are the 5035 and the 5196. The 5035,
which I'm wearing today, by the way, just for you. I'm wearing my 5196.
Classic as it gets.
Yes.
With the 5196, I mean dates back to 1932. This aesthetic and this look, you can't go wrong with that watch. And that's the watch. If you only have to have one Patek Philippe, you need a Calatrava.
Yes.
Now, adding complications and going back to 1996, the 5035 here in the bottom right corner, that is an extraordinary piece too. So I'm so glad you have that. It's a classic. It's a complication that I think is a little underappreciated today. We're not seeing big numbers on 5035s.
No, they're a relative bargain at the moment.
Yeah. So I'd love to see that. I personally love to have a 5035 someday. And you have a quintessential collection, and it doesn't, I'm happy to say, include a Nautilus. You're not
or an Aquanaut.
Or an Aquanaut. You're not chasing the trends.
No.
What you love, and that's what a collection is all about.
I got to tell you, the reason they're spaced out like this, okay, so basically, look, I'm not a rich man, okay, I'm very lower middle class, okay. Think, you know, Patek is an extreme. Patek is an expensive hobby, really. What I tried to do was years ago. I kind of said, well, what do I want to do? Is I'd like to have each of the major movements. So at the front row, you got the world time, which has got the 240 micro rotor movement. It's got to use the 240 base. I got the 5196 in the middle, which has got the 215 movement. That's a legendary manual wind movement. And next to that, I've got the 315/324 type family of movement in the annual calendar. So I kind of wanted one of each. Then in white gold, because I think white gold really does suit as a non-complication. I've always loved the crown guards on the 5107. I had one. I actually had a 5107 for years, and then I had to part with it for personal reasons. And this is a 5127 I have now, which is basically the next one along in that series.
With the rounded bezel. That's quite nice.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I've also, look, it's a bit of a coincidence. I had a really good friend of mine. I actually had a 5296. He said to me, hey, I will sell you my 6006 very cheap. It's a long story. And I thought, hey, to get a black dial in the collection with a 240 movement and the deploying clasp, I thought, wow, if I could, I sold it, put a little bit of money in. I put about $1,500 in and got this one, which I thought amazing. So I got to be honest with you, I love this collection. I love these watches. Look, this is not the greatest Patek collection in the world. This is just my humble Patek collection. You know, I would love, people said to me, oh, add a 5070. That's the manual wind chronograph. Add a 5170. The problem is, they're so expensive. You know, they're so, you know, I kind of, the problem I have is I would have to sell a few pieces to get it, and I don't really want to. You know, sometimes in life you just enjoy what you've got. You know, and just out of interest, I do actually have two 5127s. Okay, which you'd think is ridiculous. I'm in Brisbane, Australia. One has got a 315 movement. That's actually the one in the photo. The other one's got the 324 movement. One's got Geneva seal. One's got Patek seal. One is rhodium plated, and one is the new white gold. Don't ask me how that happened. It just did. So I got to say thank you for your kind words there. Look, I don't know, with these watches here, you know, so many people, I don't know whether these are, you know, I never want to buy things as an investment to say, look, I've got to buy this, it's going to be worth. I think that's the wrong way to look at the hobby. If the things you buy do well, fantastic. If they don't do well, they're not going to be worth zero, but you've enjoyed them. You know what I mean? It's like somebody who buys a Mercedes-Benz S-Class brand new. That's not a good investment, but it's so much fun. You know what I mean? It's kind of when your ex-wife sees you in that S-Class, it makes her angry. That's why you buy one. It's not so much for, hey, I'm going to sell it for a profit, because you really don't do that. But
there are so many collectors that are actually investors. They're literally trying to buy and sell, flip, flip, flip. And often that strategy doesn't work. Those that have bought out of passion for what they love, they always win. So I like the words that you just shared. That's great advice. And
I mean, the worst thing is, I actually met Terry Stern in Singapore. I was wearing a scruffy shirt with frayed. It was just it's just my get dirty, walk around Singapore clothes. You know, I had sneakers and I just looked ridiculous, and I had a Explorer 2 on. Oh. And I said, Terry, he was quite thrilled. I said, hey, can I please have a photo with you? It was one chance. I thought, I'm going to just do it. I don't care what I'm wearing. He was a very gracious, lovely guy, Terry. Lovely guy.
Was this at the Grand Exhibition?
This was actually, he was staying at a hotel I was walking past. I didn't see him at the exhibition because I actually came back to Singapore 2 times that month. Okay, it's a long story. Don't ask me why, but I had a chance to say hello, and I got to tell you, every Patek I've got here, I've actually bought pre-owned. I haven't bought anything new. I can't afford to pay new prices. I kind of buy at the other end of the market, you know, as it's been digested. It's not trendy anymore, but I got to say to you, he's a lovely guy. Now, I want to ask you some questions because you are the guru. I want to ask you, first question I want to ask you, John. First question I want to ask you. So thank you for your kind words on my collection there.
Oh, thanks for showing them.
One question.
Yes.
Okay. One piece. What is your favorite piece? Out of all these, actually, let me ask you a couple of questions, then we'll get into some questions. I just want to wrap up my collection very quickly. If you had to pick one piece, if there was a fire and you could only grab one, well, you grabbed a lot, but just hypothetically,
50,
more
35,
likely
5035 J annual calendar.
That's the one you liked best out of it.
Yes. That's a
And
I love that watch. It's a rotary based system for complication, which hasn't been done before that era. It makes a lot of sense, and it's easy to set, easy to wear, great base caliber. So that would be the one I'd run away with in the fire.
And one other question, if you had to get rid of one, which one would you get rid of?
Oh, that's so tough. Well, I'm embarrassed I misidentified the 6006, so I'm going to kick that one out.
Okay, no worries at all.
That means nothing. I like the earlier pieces. I find the 5035 is just a quintessential Patek Philippe.
Okay, let's go. Let's ask you a question. First thing, what is your general opinion of the Patek market at the moment? What's your opinion?
Well, I mean, in the middle of a global pandemic, when this all began, I thought it was the end. I didn't think, especially starting a new business, selling pre-owned and vintage Patek Philippe, I thought this was the writing was on the wall, that things were not going to look up for a long time. What was surprising was in the darkness of our winter, the amount of people that were looking at Patek Philippe for the first time. They had a lot of time to be watching ArchieLuxury, going to PatekPhilippe.com or my site or many other online resources. So it was a real punctuated growth in knowledge of the brand, which I've never seen. It was explosive growth in 2020 in knowledge, because people took the time to study, to pay attention, and maybe weren't spending as much time at cocktail parties as literally engaging with other like-minded collectors and really understanding the watches that they had and the watches that they wanted to buy. And it's been an amazing growth of community that's been truly global that we've seen. What this means for the Patek Philippe market is there's new blood coming in, there's new people buying, there are people looking at watches in ways that they haven't before. And what we've seen, just this past weekend at auction, are extraordinary results. Their bidding this past weekend was very aggressive at Philippe's. The Sotheby's sale and the Christie sales are right around the corner, and everyone's hoping and expecting for solid results to continue. And speaking to retailers selling modern Patek Philippe, they're doing quite well if they have the inventory to sell. The problem is there's not enough pieces to go around for the demand. Speaking to other dealers on the vintage side, in a world where there are very few watch shows and the get-togethers that we're also comfortable with in the past, they don't exist right now. Yet dealers are still buying and selling and transacting. And I don't have the latest numbers from Chrono 24 too, but the numbers are skyrocketing on the vintage and pre-owned side. It's exciting for what's happening. So in short, it's supply and demand. Supply is low, demand keeps growing. It's been fuel on the fire from the time people have spent connecting and studying over the recent months.
John, the next question is, the next question for you is, if someone came to you and said, "Hey John, I've been in the watch collecting hobby for a decade now. I've had Rolex, I've had some PAM, I've had all sorts of, I had an IWC, I've had a JLs," and then they say, "Look, John, I really want to get a Patek as a first Patek. What do you think the best first Patek for a collector who's been in the watch?" Normally, someone who buys Patek, they don't just buy Patek first off. They've gone through a bit of a journey. What's your advice? What do you think the best first Patek for somebody is? Now that can be new or pre-owned. Yeah. What do you think is good? What do you think is good?
The first question I often ask is why Patek Philippe, and just listen. People have different reasons. They might remember their father or grandfather owning one. They might have seen the ad campaign that pass it on to the next generation. They might have gone to the local retailer and a salesperson said someday buy a watch from that case. So I try to read if it was an aspirational purchase or something that is a very emotional purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people clearly are just buying for investment purposes. So I'd like to know that up front. So I would just start by listening to what they say. 9 times out of 10 or 8 times out of 10, the answer is a Calatrava. Like when we're discussing your piece, there's a huge breadth of choice of what you can buy. What's also great is there's a huge breadth of price point from $5,000 to $1 million. You can buy a Calatrava based on what it is and what period it's from, what reference it is. But for me, a reference 96 is like the quintessential starting point. This was the reference that came out. I don't know if you could see this, but in 1932. I don't see where the camera is.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
So a classic 96 is the way to go. But at a much different price point, you could find a 3796, which is the modern equivalent. And you can see, you really, the light's a little harsh. You really can't tell the difference between these watches. So for a collector willing to put in under $10,000, there's options. And then you can go right up the ladder, buying 570s, which are one of my favorite references.
Oh, amazing.
And then
I actually did handle a that's the jumbo Calatrava to people who are not Patek gurus there. The 570 was considered their jumbo version of the classic Patek. I think it was 35 mil, so it was
35.5 millimeters. I mean, it's still small, but it was the big watch
for the time it was in. It was, and it also. The funny thing is, people get too caught up on how many mils. It's actually how it wears is more important.
How it sits on your wrist.
Exactly. Like I've got a couple 37 mil watches that wear completely different. And it's funny. The 5035, which you love so much, they were trying to make it smaller, and they used visual tricks to make it smaller. Now you'd want to make it bigger. You know, it's kind of funny at the period that it came out in. And the 5070, beautiful watch indeed there. So
that's interesting you bring up millimeters. It's almost it's like a secret language for collectors of any category. Everyone is kind of testing how many millimeters your Milgauss is, or how many millimeters your Portuguese are. This is part of the secret language of watch collecting. Yet, when you put them on your wrist, I mean, I've seen 32, 33 millimeter wrists, watches on men. They're absolutely fine. It's the way it sits on the wrist. It has a lot to do with the strap, how you wear watches. And I have a problem with these, hockey pucks, these 50 millimeter watches you see people wearing. It just doesn't make sense to me. They're huge. So
no. Okay, so now the next question I have for you, John, is say somebody comes to you, they have a 5196 or they have a 5296. They bought it new, and then they say to you, look, John, what's the second Patek to buy? What would you recommend? So they've already got a basic Calatrava. It could be automatic or it could be mechanical. What would you say to someone? Look, I kind of like this hobby. What is a reasonable watch to go to as a second Patek?
Yeah, it depends on budget, but looking at today, 3940s and particular 5040s, they're so undervalued.
Yes.
If lucky, you could still find them in the low 30s or even occasionally under 30. We've seen a slight bump in recent months. 3940s, I think, are finally coming into their own. But that's kind of the next level of complication. But to own a perpetual calendar from Patek Philippe made 20
it's amazing.
years ago is just a dream come true. And for those that have one of these 240 caliber base perpetuals, they swear by them because it conveys a lot of information. They're comfortable, they're streamlined, they're the classic Patek Philippe through and through. So that would be the next step.
I think I would also say the if you know the 50-35 I think is a relative bargain myself.
Of course.
That's why I've got one there. The one thing I found very inspiring is there were two Hodinkee, one of his early watches when he was kind of not as successful as he is now, is he got a 3940 which he would never part with. And I don't know if you've ever met Jake Erwick. He had a blog, Jake's Rolex blog, I think.
Out of California, I believe. Yes.
Yeah. He tells a story how he always wanted one. He bought one. He ended up selling it, okay? But that I don't think that's a terrible thing. It's at least he's enjoyed it for a while. It's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. And I think it's an interesting. I tend to agree with you. The 3940, any perpetual calendar is an amazing thing. Let me ask you this: if you had a choice of a perpetual calendar or a Patek chronograph, what do you think is best? What do you think is more Patek Philippe?
It's interesting. I'm often asked which is more exciting, a minute repeater or a split second. So you're asking a perpetual and a chronograph. Yeah,
like for example, so say a 3940, and you could probably look, the 5070 is amazing, but they're a premium, so you'd probably say like a 5170.
Yes.
You could sort of compare. What would you be steering towards? Would you be going perpetual, or would you be going like a manual wind chronograph sort of thing?
I always believe in compromise, so 3970. You need a perpetual.
both taken care of.
Yeah, check both boxes. No, but in answer to your question, I'd lean towards perpetual calendars. I find the 240Q calibers not only, like we discussed, affordable, relatively affordable. That watch is classic Patek Philippe through and through. There's no Nouvelle Lemagne side storyline. It's purely in-house Patek Philippe, and to own a 240 caliber is the way to go. I love Patek Philippe chronographs, obviously, but if I had pressed between the two, I think I would lean towards the perpetual.
I see. That's.
What about you? Which is your first favorite?
Look, I got to be totally honest with you. I'm kind of. I find it very hard. You know, I started off in my Patek collecting. I tell you, my journey itself was. I came from Brisbane. We're kind of a hick town. Okay, we were never like Sydney's the prestigious that's the largest capital city. Brisbane's kind of the third option on the list. Okay, so what I always wanted, I thought Rolex was the best watch. Then I said to a watch guy, "What's the best?" He goes, "Oh, there's a brand called Patek Philippe." I used to say Philippe Patek because I never heard of this brand. And then I followed your. I got my first Patek I got in 2001 was a 3919, the classic.
Yes, classic
33 mil.
Yep.
Yeah, I actually loved it. Unfortunately I had to part with that watch for personal reasons. Years later, I ended up getting a 3944.
Oh, the quartz. Yes.
The quartz one, yes. Which I wanted it, and it's like having an automatic Ferrari. You kind of think, why did you get the automatic? Why didn't you? I mean, it's still a beautiful thing. I sold that for personal reasons as well there. And then, because I got the 3919, I got the magazine. I subscribed to the magazine, and I got sent this magazine in the post, which basically it had the new 5110. To me, that was a dream watch. If I won the lotto, I would have bought I thought it was the most amazing Patek 5110, and because the previous version, they're millions of dollars.
Yes.
The 2523. They're
You could have bought one last weekend for $5.5 million.
So was that the right reference? What reference was it? 25.
2523.
Yep.
Here, this one right here. This was the original.
The original. And I got to tell you, the 5110. So I thought that was amazing. The other watch I thought was amazing, because I was in the hobby late 90s, was the first annual calendar. That was revolutionary.
Of course.
And I thought to myself, an expensive Patek has many eyes. If you could get a Patek with a couple, like subdials, like whether it's a chrono or a perpetual, something with many eyes, you think, wow, that's super expensive. That was kind of but I've got to tell you, honestly, I find it myself that I'm very grateful for the watches I have. I find it very hard to part with some of them to pay for so I just wait and see. But I've got to tell you, I think both of them are amazing. A perpetual and a chronograph is amazing. I like the compromise, the 5960. I'm not as greedy as you, John. That's that's the annual calendar chronograph. Yeah. I kind of think that could be an amazing watch, but
those are nice.
I gotta be honest with you. I think I think a 5170 would probably, manual wind chronograph, amazing. It depends. It depends, mind you. As you said there, the 5140 is amazing. I don't know. I hope I get to make that decision. I hope I have enough money to have that dilemma come up. I really do. I think they're both amazing. And that's the fun of collecting. It's not just to have a straight answer. It's to think, ooh, what would you... It's like when you're in high school. Do you go Lamborghini Diablo, Lamborghini Countach or Ferrari? You know what I mean? It's that debate. That's
that's what's fun. And back when we could go out to dinner with people, it's great just to trade watches and just stories, and you start looking at pieces you might have never imagined could be for you. Everyone has a great reason why they bought the watch that they're wearing, and part of the pleasure of collecting is learning those stories.
I think, I got to be totally honest with you. You move in Patek circles there, and there's nothing wrong with people who are very well endowed financially to buy whatever they want. But I often find somebody who has oodles of money, they'll buy this, they'll buy that. They don't really love anything. I tell this story. It's like the guy who's got 10 Ferraris versus... He only buys special Ferraris. It's got to be this, it's got to be that. Whereas the guy who has one Ferrari, he doesn't care what Ferrari it is. He just wants a Ferrari. He's just that's the Patek equivalent of a guy having a Neptune. A Neptune. He just doesn't care. He just wants a Patek. He wants a Patek. He's just... And that
the
guy...
loved of all Patek Philippe references.
I think there's potential. That guy has got more love, and I think sometimes the wealthy collector, they take things for granted. Somebody who's got to struggle and fight and, trade this, it's never... They've got a more interesting story.
Well said.
There was a great saying, the biggest problem, this is, I think Oscar Wilde said, he said, the two big injustices in life is, one, not getting what you want, and the second thing is getting everything you want. The latter is far worse. I don't know. No, I think...
That's a great quote. That says it a lot. And I know some collectors that have like 5 or 6 watches and they're happy as can be. Others might have 100 Patek Philippes or more, and they just are not unhappy. They're unhappy because they'll
Yes.
never get the watches they want. I think the Patek Philippe Museum kind of puts an end to any discussion. You can't have everything in the world, but a lot of the fun is in the hunt.
Exactly. And let me just tell you a story quickly. There, many years ago, for my 40th, I actually refinanced the family car to buy my 5035. It was paid off. I had a Honda Accord, relatively new. My dad had helped me pay it off. I had a small inheritance and he put some money in. And then I thought, you know what, for my 40th, I'll refinance the car and buy a 5035, as you do, you know. Unfortunately, my wife actually had a car accident in that car. And she survived. She was okay. But I thought, you know what? It's time for me sell the Patek. And she always wanted to play piano. I bought a grand piano. Believe it or not, I bought the grand piano with the profit from the 5035. I bought it very cheap, sold very high. And I got to be honest with you, I managed to get another car, but I unfortunately let it slip to my dad that he goes, at least it's paid off. but the funny thing is, the advertisement for the 5035, it's a picture of a guy teaching his kid to play piano.
Oh, I remember that ad. Yes.
You know, that's just so, I could not make this story up.
It went full circle.
And then I managed to buy it back. That same watch. I managed to buy that same watch back. And so for me, even if I was offered like a 3940 to swap for it, I'd want to keep my... Does that make sense? I'd want to keep my one, because that's the one I had when I turned 40. You know what I mean? That's kind of, it's a sentimental thing. I like that story to the watch. And I got to tell you, I actually
I love when I hear watches coming back to the original owner. It's,
exactly right. You know, I missed that watch so much. Yeah. I actually had a photo of that watch I used to display at work on my desk there. And I had to sell it, my 5035. I thought, you know, it's funny, people criticize, they say, oh, the 5035, it's a bit small, it's a bit this, but I think it's an amazing piece of history. I mean, that's just I don't really care whether it goes up or doesn't. I've got one that it doesn't matter, but that's part of the fabric of collecting these things. And I've been very fortunate. You know, you can get a bit greedy. The more you collect, the more pieces you get a bit greedy. I remember I had two Pateks. I had a 5107 and I had a 5035. And I thought, what would I really love? Because you just like to think, what would you... Oh, I'd love a world time. And I remember thinking, a world time is that's so unreasonable. It's ridiculous. I managed to get one. Don't ask me. They've kind of gone up a bit since I bought it. But I got to tell you, now I look back and say, I got a world time, I got an annual calendar, I got a couple of Calatravas, and now I'm starting to think, oh, you should get a chronograph. And think, hey, hang on a minute, just be content with the beautiful. Sometimes you get a bit greedy. You always, the more you have, the more you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of think sometimes it's best just slow down. You don't have to have a collection instantly. Too many people want everything, this Instagram generation now, everything. It often takes a lot of horse trading to build a collection.
You bring up a great point that people don't talk about. This is the stories of letting go and having things come back into one's life. And your story, it's funny. When I left Patek Philippe, I bought, before I left the company, a 5134G. It was my first complicated Patek Philippe, the travel time. And
Yes, I love the 5134. It's also a little bit undervalued at the moment, but it's a mechanical 215 based
correct
travel time, which is absolutely amazing.
And the one that I bought was the white dial with the applied white gold Breguet numerals, the first
Lovely.
one, which I love. Yeah, after I left Patek.
Do you still have it?
No, here's the problem.
Okay.
And it actually it's very much parallel to your story. I left Patek Philippe, took a new job, and I needed to drive to Connecticut. So I needed a car. In order to afford said car, which interestingly was a Honda, again.
Yes.
I sold my 5134G. And the fact that watch is out there with my name on the certificate breaks my heart. And interestingly, I know the gentleman that now owns it watches your channel. And I hope, I'm looking you in the eye right now, I want to buy my watch back, please. Yeah, I'll pay a fair over market price to have my 5134 back. The moral of the story is the cars are long gone. The stories are always with us, and the watches do have a way of finding their way back. It's a sentimental thing.
Very, very, very true. It's I got to tell you, I don't know if you know this. You've met Nick Folks. How is he? Is he the most peculiar guy you've ever met?
He is my hero. He's an incredible gentleman. He has a fashion sense that I'll never have. And if those of you who have not seen Fox and Sons on Instagram, he does these videos discussing cigars, drinks, fashion with his son, and they are hilarious. They're informative, enjoyable. Nick Fox is a superhero for many, and he's an eccentric, wonderful intellectual. And
it's Folks, isn't it? Is it Nick Folks or Fox?
I don't have the accent right. Oh,
because he wrote the two legendary books on Patek is Patek Philippe in America, and there's the Nick Folks book there. And I tell you this, he wrote an article many years ago where he was talking about the 5107, and he said, because I owned a 5107, so when you own one, you do all the research on every article that was ever written about it you want to read, you know. And he said, he was talking this, so 5107, that's early 2000s it came out, right? And he said, the 5107 is the perfect watch if you want to start a collection. He said you could add a 5035, 5134, 5110. If you look at my collection, I've kind of that article that I read is kind of planted the seeds to
incredible. Wow.
To be honest with you, I was actually looking at selling my 5127 because I've got two to get a 5134.
There you go. Which dial?
Sorry?
Which dial?
Any. Don't care. I never ever say color got to be this or it's got to be that. It's always it's the deal. You know, if it's I think all the colors are very, very nice. I don't hate. There's very few watches in Patek that I dislike. They're all funky. You know, it's sort of. But I'd have to say to you, Nick Folks kind of guided he wrote this article, and I thought, you know, that's an interesting way to. He was just talking about the watches of the time, and I kind of think, you know, we live in very interesting times. Like, you think about it, before the mid-90s, if you wanted a complicated Patek, it was either Calatrava, a simple 2 or 3 hander, or a perpetual calendar. There was no middle ground there.
Yeah, the whole concept and terminology they used internally was small complication. This didn't exist. It was groundbreaking to me, a new price point for the market. So I'm glad they went that direction.
Yes.
I have a Nick story to share.
Yes, yes.
Very quick story. Here, I have
Yes,
the book
yes.
right here.
We love your story. Please, please tell us your stories.
This is,
No rush.
This is my
Nick's
plug
story.
for Nick's book, the authorized biography. It is
Yes.
absolutely stunning from a historical perspective.
And just out of interest there, let me tell you this.
Yes.
I sent you, just before you tell me the story, you want to know why? Like, you've seen my Patek shrine I've got.
Your altar, yes.
And you said to me, why don't I have your book in it? Because your book is not available. It's out of print. I
can't afford to buy my own book anymore. It's crazy.
You know what? That's why I didn't have your book in my... I was actually wanting to buy your book. Because I wanted... I sold a car for a friend of mine. He had a vintage... It's a classic car. It actually sold it for about $60,000 US.
Mm-hmm.
And the profit, I bought the Mondani set of books. You know, the
Mondani, yes.
Which they don't really have much content, you know. But as a reference source, you've got to have it. If you're a Patek person, you must have. And I must say, sorry. Tell me your Nick Folk story. So sorry.
It's quick.
Yes.
So apparently today, if you're a salesperson at a Patek Philippe store or boutique, you have to take a test before you're able to meet end consumers.
Yes.
So there's an exam that's given digitally, and a gentleman who's taking this test in Asia took a screenshot of one of the questions and sent it to me last week. And it literally made me the happiest human being on earth. Here was the question. It said, the author of the authorized biography of Patek Philippe is A, Nick Fox, B, Dr. Peter Priest, who's the curator of the Patek Philippe Museum, or C, John Reardon. For me to be the wrong answer was the greatest day of my life. I thank you all. Whoever put that test together, I'm honored to even be mentioned, and it was something I was quite happy to see. So I am the wrong answer and very proud of it.
I must say, your book is amazing. Your book, I must say, not to, you know, you're a very humble guy there, but the book Patek Philippe in America, I actually had seen it before I got the copy you sent me.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I didn't buy it is it was so damn expensive. That book is dear. That book is really, really, and it's not even in print now.
Yeah, this was now, wow, it was 2008, while I was working for Patek Philippe, that book went to print after just years of putting it together. It was a self-financed passion project, and I'm so glad I did it. It was it's a lot of fun.
That's an amazing thing to have done. That's a great book. That's a great book. I was
so fortunate to have access to many of the people who were part of Patek Philippe in the States, including Werner Sohn, who started in 1937 at Patek Philippe, and to be able to interview extensively someone who lived and breathed Patek Philippe from the days that the company in the U.S. was 3 people was priceless. And special thanks to Werner for his time.
Yes. And I hope, John, that book comes back into print there, because I'm trying to find the companion. You had a companion guide. I've been looking on eBay.
So there are 2 follow-up guides, which are just picture books. I did very small runs, so they're hard to find.
Okay, yes.
They're original archive images of almost every reference made from the late 30s through the 90s.
Wow, got you.
And there's the men's guide, and then the last book was the ladies' guide.
Yes.
And perhaps most interesting is the ladies' guide, because no one's really academically scrutinized the history of Patek Philippe ladies' wristwatch design, and that deserves to be a proper book in itself. of design.
You are right. I've actually owned 3 ladies. These were for my wife. She had a quartz ellipse. Then I sold that, got a mechanical ellipse. And then she had a 24, and then I needed the money. But that's another story. No. She got some other watches. We look. I think with watches, if you're very rich, you can keep everything forever. But sometimes that's how the hobby. You can't go in and out of certain watches. I want to ask you another question, John. You're the expert. Patek guru, John Reardon. Let me ask you this now. If you had 100,000 US dollars, you want to invest in Patek, a Patek or a Patek collection, what would you buy with 100,000 US dollars? What would you do? You can buy new, you can buy used. Just build me a collection, or
for
100,000 US. Is that enough, or is that not enough?
Oh, you could do a lot for 100,000.
Okay.
My first comment is don't invest that 100,000. Don't think of it as an investment. There are plenty of places to invest, but if you want to do a quote informed passion in quote purchase, that's a different storyline. And I would advise, there's a couple of pieces.
Just one thing there. Let me just say this to you. I always say to people, when I owned my 3944, I bought it, I had it for 6 months, and I sold it for what I paid for. An accountant, my dad's an accountant, he said, "You didn't make any money on that one." I said, "No, I did. The dividend was the enjoyment of having it for 6 months for free. That's the dividend. It made my heart feel good, and it wards off cancer and nasty bosses and ex-wives who want, that's the dividend. The dividend is the enjoyment you get from it." Sorry, tell me your thoughts there. So you're saying don't do it solely for money.
Don't think of it for investment. But okay, let's say you have 100,000 to spend.
100,000 US.
I'm going to give 3 choices. And
yes.
It's something for everyone. First is an early world time. Before the 2523, there was the reference 1415, 1415 world time.
They're super expensive, but aren't they?
You could still find them under 100,000 in yellow gold. And it's because they're small. I think they're 31, 32 millimeters. But to buy a watch that has such important historical importance, the aesthetic is unmatched. These were handmade by the inventor of the world time mechanism, Louis Cotier. That's where I would personally put my money. I would buy a 1415. I'd hunt one down until I could find one. If I couldn't find a 1415, my next choice would be a 1526, another fan favorite, perpetual. The 1526 with the moon phase is as classic as it gets for a Patek Philippe. The case, the dial, the hand enameled moon phase. I mean, everything about this watch, and you can still find these for under $100,000. There's one here in the U.S. that I'm so tempted to personally buy. To me, that is a must-have reference, and very rare. Is less, I think, off the top of my head, like 200 examples made of a 1526. Now, those first 2 suggestions aren't easy to find. So here's the third, and I've said this on multiple occasions. The 3970 is the watch to have. I mean, you could buy one, depending what series, condition, completeness. You could buy one between $70,000 and $90,000. If it's a second series or something exceptional, of course the price goes up. But to have a perpetual chrono on your wrist from Patek Philippe at that price point, you can't go wrong.
Amazing.
That's my short list of 3. I couldn't.
Okay. So would you, for 100,000, could you build a 3-piece collection, or?
Oh, easily. For 100,000, you could build.
I'm actually interested in that. So I'm actually very interested in. So the first way you looked at this is 100,000. Let's get an amazing piece. Each of those 3 pieces they're incredible. They're absolutely incredible. And I okay, that's an interesting way of looking at that question. Now so the next part B, if we were to build a collection for 100,000, what would you do there?
Oh, well, that's fun. First, I'd pick a pocket watch.
Ah.
A chronometro gondola
Yes.
from the early 20th century, because you can't beat a story that involves gambling, alcohol,
Yes.
in this brilliant lottery system of guys coming together talking about watches
Yes.
and just celebrating their common passion. I mean, this is as good as it gets, and you could buy a piece
Yes.
of that story for under $7,000 with
Wow. Yes.
an
Yes.
oversized Patek Philippe pocket watch that's now
Okay.
over 100 years old. So that
Yep.
is the first part.
Yep.
The other bookend to that is I would pick a modern watch, something from the current production line.
Okay.
Wow, there's so many to choose from, but we'll keep it pre-owned. I actually come back to the direction you went. A 5107 would be a 5127. A Calatrava.
Sure.
Is the way to go, and
Yep.
still find it for well under $20,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or closer to
Yeah.
15. A great Calatrava.
Yeah.
All right, so we spent $22,000.
Yes.
We still have a lot less to spend.
And the thing is, for 22,000, we've got a very usable Calatrava. It's got a screw-in crown. We've got a kick-ass pocket watch, and we've got money left. What? Okay, let's keep going. What else would you buy?
I would buy a 3700 if I could.
The
depends on the
Nautilus.
budget.
Yeah.
I would not buy a 5711 because I swear everyone has a 5711, and kudos to you if you bought it for retail.
Yes.
If you paid 2 or 3 times retail, I don't understand. That's a lot of money to spend to join a club.
Yes.
The watch itself at retail or below is an extraordinary piece to have for 5711. But
Yes.
for the same price, plus maybe 20-30%, you could start considering buying the original, a 3700.
Yes.
And that is interesting, to own a piece from the late 70s, early 1980s.
Yes.
And to me, these movements, the dials, scholarship is now digging deep. There's a number of new books about 3700s out there. They're just a lot of fun to own, and they're going to keep going up in value.
Excellent selection there. Any other pieces? Oh, that's about it. That's about 100,000 gone.
That will probably top out at 110 with that, but that's okay.
That's
the ballpark.
That's okay.
So. But what's
John,
great, I've seen collectors for 5,000 or 10,000. You can start your Patek Philippe collection. You start getting your Patek Philippe magazine. You can be part of a global community of people passionate about watches. And it's
tell me this,
any price point.
John, I wanted to ask you this. What is your core? I mean, obviously, I know you're in business here, but what won't you sell? How many Pateks do you have, like, personally, as opposed to the business, that you love and they're your Pateks? They're John's Pateks.
It's my personal collection of Patek Philippe is quite limited. I mean, it'd be a 3-watch collection. I always joke the one that I'll never sell is my first, and that's a Court reference 5064 in steel. The
Aquanaut
in steel.
I love that watch.
Is I know it's a Quartz Aquanaut, but it was my first. And when I was working at Patek Philippe for the first 2 years, I was visiting all the retailers wearing a vintage Longines watch from the 1940s.
Yes.
And the retailers would ask, they're like, "You're trying to sell us inventory, but you don't even own a Patek Philippe." And I looked them in the eye. I'm like, I'm saving to buy my first. In the day, literally, the moment I had enough money to buy my first Patek Philippe, the least expensive watch available was a 5064A. It retailed for $5,250 at the time, and this was in the year 2001, and that was the watch. So what I love about doing what I do now, I was spoiled for years being surrounded by some of the most valuable, desirable Patek Philippe's, and often it was really hard to say I want to buy this $40,000 watch when you're being spoiled with a $1 million watch. The
Yes.
pleasure of having.
Yes. No, I understand. I understand.
So
of course.
what I'm
yeah.
doing now, I'm literally a treasure hunter. I'm buying and selling what I love. It might not be what
Yes.
everyone else likes, but it's what I love.
No.
And
I can.
that is a ton of fun. So I'm
Yes.
stocking. Generally, I stock about 100 watches at a time.
Wow.
And I also buy and sell Patek Philippe clocks, which I think are another unsung hero of Patek Philippe's lineage from the
Yes.
mid-20th century. So I'm just I have Patek Philippe clocks like everywhere in my office and at home. I absolutely love them, and they're reasonable.
They're amazing. Yes.
So
Yes.
so in short, it's I consider myself a collector, but I'm still I'm
Okay,
buying
so
things in order to
5064. Give me
sell
some more. What other ones are the John Reardon? You said 3 were in your collection. What's the other 2?
Yes.
Give me the other 2.
The second might be surprising because it is not a Patek Philippe. This is the second
That's okay.
piece I will never
That's
sell.
okay. No, that's okay.
And it turns out it's a Tiffany dialed watch. It looks exactly like a 570 in pink gold, but it was actually made by Movado. And this watch was bought in the late 40s by no other than Henry Graves Jr., the greatest Patek Philippe
Patek collector in the yes.
And he gave it to his grandson, Pete Fullerton, as a gift for completing high school.
Wow.
I have that watch. It's a humble piece, but it is.
Yes.
It's the one I'll just never let go of that watch. Absolutely.
Wow.
Love.
What a great story.
And
the
I
third
also
piece?
I collect strangely 17th and 18th century British long case clocks. And these each of my children will have, well, hopefully inherit one someday, and those will stay in the family. But in answer to your question, my Patek Philippe, I've sold some pieces I never thought I'd let go of, including that 5134. I sold my 5135, which is another one I thought I'd never let go of. But as you would say, that's another story.
Yes. Yes. No. I completely understand there. It's look, the problem is, is that these are so expensive. I mean, I'm a lower middle class guy, and when you've got children and family and mortgages and car payments, luckily the Hondas are good. You sometimes, selling a Patek plugs quite a few holes.
But what's so fantastic about just the watch community is, even if you don't have one, you're part of something much bigger. And
of course.
I love that. I mean, we just talk from Australia to here in the US, and it's like we're
I got to tell you, I've actually gotten rid of all my Rolex.
Yes.
Okay, and then the reason was, I mean, Pateks are dear, you might look at my collection and say, wow, geez, there's a lot of struggle here. Let me tell you this, I can tell you each one of these here has a lot of struggle. The 5127 in the corner, I had to swap 3 steel Rolexes for a Milgauss, a new Air King, and a Explorer 1 39mm. Okay, so that was expensive. The World Time, that was an inheritance I got in 2009. That was actually the money from I bought the 5107, then I sold that and I got a solid gold sub, and I sold that and got the World Time. Okay, I actually had a white gold one first, then I sold that and got the yellow, because I actually preferred the yellow, but that's another story. The 6006 there, actually, sorry, the 6006 was the 3 Rolexes. The 5107, that was my 2-tone Daytona with the blue the blue dial with Arabics. I swapped for that. So these are all painful. And the 5196, my last steel sports watch, my Explorer 2, really nice F serial number Polar, I used it as a deposit for the 5196. So all of these here. Oh, and the 5035, I had to get rid of my bluesy 2-tone Submariner mint V serial last of the series to get that back. And a Zenith El Primero Open Heart 1969. It all hurts. It all hurts.
But as a Patek Philippe person through and through, I have to say you made the right decision. But look, here's the great thing. You could find those watches again. You could buy them. Many have gone up in value, as you know. But
yeah,
you could find those.
Mind you, look. I don't think the Pateks have done too badly. I mean, look. But it's. I got to be honest with you. I can't believe me would have. I've actually got six at the moment. 6 Pateks. You know, I got to be honest with you, John. The whole reason I have stayed out of having a buy and sell business is, let me tell you this. A good businessman, he will sell something when he makes a profit.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone came to me and said, hey, I want to buy your 5110. And I said, hang on a minute. That's the cherry of my cake. That's the best one I've got. I don't want to sell that. So I don't, you know what I mean? So I'm strong enough to realize I'm not a good businessman because I'm clouded by collector. And the other thing is too, I like to keep my watches. I think by selling them and trading them, you know, look, you've got to do what you've got to do. But for me, I've said, no, I don't really want to trade them. I love in where I come from in Australia, Patek's not New York is very different, but there is so much more Rolexes than Patek anywhere in the world. Patek, a lot of these watches were made in relatively small runs.
Sure.
You know, it's. I mean, a 5134. I love that watch. I've actually been lusting after one. Can you believe that?
After talking about it again, I think I need to find my watch back. I want a 5134 again. We should get them before they go up in value, for sure.
Look, I think they are an amazing watch. You know, they are. I can't believe. The funny thing. Can I give you a 5711 story?
Of course.
Okay, so I was working at Halliburton KBR. I was doing IT work there.
Yep.
I had a 5107. A guy I worked with, he had a 5711. Because he saw my Patek and said, is that a Patek? I said, oh. Anyhow, we both brought our watches in. And we both agreed the 5107 was a nicer watch. Because they both used that 315.
Yeah, the same 315 ST caliber. Yeah.
Which later became the 324. You know, but we had the same. And I looked at it and said, you know what? I like my 5107 better.
Mm-hmm.
Now the 5711 is so much. You know, they're. But it doesn't matter. You know, I kind of. That's the story. You know that's. There was another story. I was considering selling my 5107 and my 5035, put a bit of money in to get a 5980. That's another story.
Yeah.
It was a white dial one. But you know what? It's not about the money. You sometimes in life, I've been successful in some watches I haven't been successful in. I love them, but I love watches. It's the passion. You know, it's I really do believe that. And I got to tell you, a model that I really love is the ellipse kind of, you know, that circular. You're a huge fan of that model.
I'm a personal fan. It started out as a joke and it's become an obsession. So yeah. Like all good stories, they began. I was with a few collectors, and I was trying to sell them 5738. That's the platinum, modern, oversized ellipse. And this would have been 12 years ago. It was not an easy watch to show at that time, and it was expensive. I think it was $38,000, maybe $40,000 at the time. That was retail for an automatic ellipse. These two very important collectors here in the States just made fun of me. They mocked me. Yes. And to this day they do. And
Yes.
I, in their honor, decided that I absolutely love the Ellipse. And like we discussed Nick earlier, Nick is a huge fan of the Ellipse. And then
Yes.
we started seeing other people quietly wearing Ellipse. They were embarrassed to be shown in public with their Ellipse. It's a cult favorite. There are a lot of people actually like it.
I think the Trumpster has one.
I don't know if that's true.
On a bracelet. Integrated bracelet.
You know, someone mentioned that to me, but I've yet to see a picture. So, all right, despite that, the Ellipse is a beautiful watch. It's an absolute classic staple of Patek Philippe design.
Yes.
There's like only over 50 references that use that as the basic shape. And then the golden circle, which is just a different version. This was the first watch within the universe of Patek Philippe that had a true family built around it, meaning it had rings, it had lighters, it had pendants, money clips.
Look, if you were super rich in the 70s, you had an Ellipse.
Oh yeah, and you had all the accoutrements to look real good. You were decked out in blued gold.
Saddam Hussein even had his own crest on one.
This is true. Yes.
It doesn't get much more exclusive than that.
That is the exclusive circle of Patek Philippe right there.
It's John, I'm going to wrap this show up today. I want to thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
It's been an absolute honor. It's been an absolute honor to have you on this show. And I would like to, I'm going to put links down below, and that'll take you to your website and your YouTube channel. And I'll put in the corner, I'm not sure if it's this side or that side, I'll put a little question mark which links to your YouTube channel. So please, guys, go and take a look at John's YouTube channel. You've got you've got many good videos on starting off collecting. You had some really good video. I've actually watched every one of your videos. They're really cool.
I've smashed a few watches in the process, but
I saw that.
More videos on the way.
John, I would love to have you on again. So please, you know, it's so fun talking to you. This is not a job. We're talking watches. It's the hobby. You know, it's the collecting. It's you know. So John, I would love to have you on again. I'm going to end this now. Just stay on there because I'll talk to you once this wraps up. And I want to say thank you again. This is the author of Patek Philippe in America, one of the Patek experts, one of the leading Patek experts in the world. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you so much, ArchieLuxury, and thank you to the gentleman in Indiana who convinced me to do this show with you today. I'll share that story offline.
Hey guys, ArchieLuxury. Who do I recommend for watches in Brisbane and Sydney? Vintage Watch Co. That's correct. Vintage Watch Co. in Brisbane Arcade in Brisbane and the Strand Arcade in Sydney. Vintage Watch Co. Brisbane and Sydney. Ronnie, I've known him since the late 90s. Ronnie is a top bloke. Luke is a great guy. Vintage Watch Co. That is who I recommend in Australia. Check out Vintage Watch Co. and the guys' amazing range of watches. They also do service and repairs. Vintage Watch Co. That is where the Pontiff goes. You know, some of my Pateks came from Vintage Watch Co. That's right, guys. Vintage Watch Co. Hi guys, ArchieLuxury, and who do I recommend in America? In America, who do I recommend for quality pre-owned wristwatches? David SW, David SW, David SW. Go to davidsw.com. He is the best, the greatest pre-owned dealer in all of the United States of America. David SW, David SW, David SW.